This week, I wanted to delve into design and start a series on world building. The concept is one I briefly thought up with a friend not too long ago. The setting is the post-Civil War South. Our main character, a Confederate soldier who manages to survive the war, returns home, disheveled and exhausted. He begins to notice peculiar occurrences that are happening throughout the town, and suffers from these intermittent hallucinations of Lovecraftian organisms covering the previously pristine antebellum buildings. These faceless organisms are alien in nature. Their structures are organic and mucousy, and they pulsate. So with this backstory in mind, I now begin to design a set in a top-down 3/4 view. As mentioned before, the set is the interior of a 19th century home, so I'm looking at a lot of historical reference when figuring out what props to include in my interior design. Since the home is being overwhelmed by this large organic structure, I draw all of my props at various angles to look as though they're strewn about. I'm trying to emphasize damage and disorder, so the floorboards are cracked, the windows are shattered, and the stairs are collapsed. I'm avoiding putting in too much lighting information because we're going to try lighting the set in several different ways. So for now, I'm just trying to include the placement of the props and some textures. Something to keep in mind that I don't think I did very well in this example is to try to indicate the paths that a player can take if this were to become a video game. The design itself should indicate where a player can and cannot go and what props can be interacted with. I use a heavier line weight when one prop is in front of another, or if it's of key importance. Lighter line weights are reserved for my initial perspective blockout and some textures. It's a good idea to err on the side of lighter line weight, and then punch out some of the details later with a thicker line. Then, to separate out the silhouette of the room, I add in some values on a layer underneath. And finally add in the silhouette of a character. Beginning with a floor plan really makes my design decisions a lot easier. And possibly the most important part of design is iteration. I've only done 2 for the sake of this video, but I think that doing this process over and over again will yield better and better results. So once again, I'm keeping in mind the narrative, and I'm also trying to make the home feel as though it's lived in. This means putting yourself in the position of the person who occupies this home, as well as doing a little research into the time period to figure out what sorts of things would be included. Dining tables, chairs, cast iron stoves, these are all sorts of things that should be included in the set. And now once I have my draft view, I'll once again recreate it in a top-down 3/4 view. Once again, drawing all your props at various angles really makes it feel disheveled, and know that everything is knocked around. I went for a slightly rounder, less tree-like design for the organic structure breaking through the floor. This is the type of thing that iteration really helps you with, because you can keep refining your direction as you continue. Having this door in the back helps indicate a potential path that the player can take. You want to try to spark curiosity and inspire a player to keep searching throughout the entirety of this location. Because after all, there's no sense in designing the whole thing if the player's not going to spend the time to actually enjoy it and take it in. Elements like the collapsed stairs and overturned tables are a really nice way to set your player in a particular direction while fitting into the narrative. We'll go into it later, but lighting can also play a role in directing the player. If, for example, a light was coming from behind that far door, a player would be motivated to go investigate further. And now once again blocking in the values underneath to separate out that silhouette. I add in some lighting information just to demonstrate the specularity on the structure and to emphasize the form. So now that we have our sets designed, we can figure out where we're going to place our cameras for our cinematic shots. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the mechanics of camera movements. So when the camera is facing forward, the horizon line is directly at the center of the two-dimensional image that is produced. At this vantage point, we can only see the front faces of each box. Tilting the camera up won't allow us to see the top faces of the box, but it will lower the horizon line on the produced two-dimensional image. And as such, we'll see more of the area above the two forms. If instead we decide to pan the camera upwards as opposed to tilting it, the horizon line won't change on the produced two-dimensional image, but it will change in relation to the forms, and thus we'll be able to see the top face of the front box. If we decide to do both of these actions in conjunction, we get a combination of these two effects. Panning the camera upwards will once again allow us to see the top of the front box, while tilting downwards will raise the horizon line on the two-dimensional image produced. And now here's the whole thing in series so you can get a sense of how this works. So returning back to the sets that we've designed, we can place our camera within them to figure out our cinematic shots. I want to have the camera placed near the entrance and panned down near to the floor. The camera will also be tilted upwards, which will lower the horizon line on the two-dimensional image. This type of shot is typical of video games and concept art in general because it's very dramatic and has a nice cinematic quality to it. These grid lines will help me figure out what's captured in the line of sight of the camera. Alright, so now let's try to implement a few different lighting scenarios from the point of view of our camera. I'm going to do a few smaller thumbnails first, before committing to a larger scale drawing. These line drawings are more focused on the placement of the props than their illustrative quality. And since we're going to do a couple of different lighting scenarios with the same line drawing, I avoid putting in too much lighting information in the initial sketch. Then once I finish the sketch, I copy and paste it a few times. Once again, I'm going to be adding in my values on a layer underneath. The most important consideration while doing this is the source of the light and their direction. In this first example, the primary light source is the window on the right, which is creating these left-oriented cast shadows. In the center thumbnail, the light source is going to be emanating from the center of the room, and the light will dissipate exponentially from the light source, as is typically true of any local light. Since the light is coming from the bottom of the room, most of the planes that are facing downward will be lit. In this third example, a strong direct light will be coming from the hole in the ceiling, and a secondary lighting source from the lit lamp in the background, which will also dissipate exponentially. Notice the difference in the quality of the two lights. The first is a directional light, much like a spotlight, which creates very hard shadows. And the second is a more diffuse light, which creates softer edged shadows. Now with my 3 thumbnails done, I create a larger, more detailed sketch. Again, keeping in mind everything we've discussed so far, I start with a very light line weight, and some perspective lines to figure out the placement of my details. It's important while doing this to not let your perspective lines overpower your intuition. If you follow those lines to a T and don't rotate any of your props, it'll lead to a very stale image. So it's important that you understand the principles of rotating forms before doing this. Again, minor details like the tilting of the portraits on the wall and the drawers on the dressers being opened really give the sense that some destructive force has come through here. Again, I add in some heavier line weight on some foreground details and overlapping forms, as well as the organic structure in the back, which is the focal point of the piece. Cracks in the plaster and the exposed wood really show that the building has been weathered. I know that having all these props rotated at various angles can be a bit cumbersome, so if you're having trouble with that, be sure to check out my perspective series first, before jumping into a very complex scene like this one. Now again, once the sketch is fleshed out, I add in a layer underneath to indicate my values. I decided to go with the first lighting scenario, so our main light sources are going to be from the right window and the window in the back. Since this lighting scenario takes place in the early evening, the ambient light is much brighter than the other 2 examples. And again, since our primary light source is on the right, our strongest cast shadows will be oriented to the left. These foreground elements are receiving the least amount of light, so they're pretty much entirely in shadow. Since the upper part of the organic structure is above the window and thus the light source, The upper half of it will be underlit, with its bottom-facing planes in highlight. Once again, I place in the silhouette of my character, and I change my mind about where I want to position him. And that's pretty much all for this week, guys. Thanks for tuning in. In case you didn't know, I'm writing a book. It's going to be about 150 pages, and cover some of the stuff I discuss here on the channel in more detail. So if you'd like to support that, please click the link. And in other news, I'm going to be teaching at Brainstorm in Burbank, California starting this summer. So if you'd like to learn from me in real life, consider signing up for the course. I'll let you guys know when enrollment is available. Anyway, if you guys like that video, please like and subscribe with notifications on. I'll be making new videos every week, as well as live streaming every Saturday and Sunday. Thanks again, guys.